Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clean Buildings Performance Standard webinar. What do installers, vendors, and building operators need to know? We are excited for all of you to join the session today. We were excited and overwhelmed by the amount of registrants we noticed. So this is great. My name is Rebecca Sheppard. I'm a senior project manager at the Northwest Energy Efficiency Council. And one of my responsibilities is to manage the Clean Buildings Performance Standard Technical Assistant Help Desk. Previously, I was a resource conservation manager at a school district. I was working with energy consumption analysis, energy efficiency projects, as well as capital projects, which enabled me to work closely together with utilities, engineers, vendors, and installers. The Northwest Energy Efficiency Council is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to eliminate carbon emissions from building energy use through market-based thought leadership, education like this, and advocacy. And with me here today, I have my colleague, Britton Reif, and Britton is gonna introduce herself real quick.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Britton Reif, and I'm also a senior project manager at NEEC and the Smart Building Center. And I provide support for the Clean Buildings Performance Standard technical assistance that we offer. And today I'll be in the background running the webinar and keeping an eye out for anyone who may have a question. I know Rebecca's going to cover some of the logistics here in a little bit, but we'll ask you to put any questions you may have in the Q&A box throughout the session today. And you can also use the raise hand feature. I'll keep an eye out for that in case anyone wants to come off mute and speak up to ask a question or make a clarifying point. So thank you.
Thank you, Britton. So as you mentioned, we're going to have some announcement. We're recording the session, so that way we can share the recording afterwards, and we will also share the slide deck. We have the chat function disabled within the session, so we ask you to raise your hands, and you can add your questions into the Q&A box. That way we can keep track of the questions, we can compile them better, and if there are any unanswered questions within this session, we can make sure we can answer them and share them after this webinar. So contractors, vendors, and installers have frequent interactions with building owners, maintenance, and operational personnel of the buildings. The buildings owners, they have been notified of the Clean Buildings Performance Standard. So, and often they ask their contractors and installers for help or want to engage in a conversation with them. So the objective of today's training is to give contractors and vendors and installers and building operators an overview of the Clean Buildings Performance Standards, describe the different paths to reach the compliance, show contractors and installers how they can support the building owners and customers in reaching the compliance, and also highlight resources available, instrumental tools which help identify energy efficiency opportunities and energy savings to ultimately help the customers to reach compliance with the standard. So on the agenda today, we will introduce the standard and its components, go over some of the commonly used terms and the very important timeline. We are briefly explaining the different roles that standard identifies, go through the different compliance paths, and then explain the early adopter incentive program Washington State Department of Commerce is offering, talk about the different roles the contractor can take on, then dive into energy opportunities and which tools can be used to identify these. And then we will highlight some successful energy efficiency projects which were done and resources available to find information and of supporting programs. So I know our intake form asked about the level of knowledge you have about the Clean Buildings Performance Standard. We're having some activities planned throughout the webinar, and we're using Slido. So to join, you will go to slido.com and then enter this number show on the screen, the 2627508. And our first question will be, how much knowledge do you have about the Clean Buildings Performance Standard? And we're asking this again because we had such a great number of registrants where I think a lot of them will be able, won't be able to join, but signed up for the recording. So this is just giving us an idea of the level of knowledge our online audience has. So I'm going to let that. And Britton also entered the link into the chat function or into the Q&A. Okay, so it looks like we have some experts on here, which is helpful. We have some folks which are somewhat familiar, probably heard about the standard, but could use some additional clarification. And some which are not familiar at all. This will be great. This is a great first step for you to familiarize yourself with the standard. Okay, so this looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and move on. This gives us a good idea. And we'll start diving into the content. So thank you for participating in the survey. We appreciate it. So why are we talking about the Clean Buildings Performance Standard in the first place? And what is its purpose? And yeah, why are we doing this? So buildings are the second largest carbon polluter statewide. And we all know Washington's population is growing. And so have the greenhouse gas emissions from the buildings. So, and with the Climate Commitment Act, we are required, the state of Washington is required to reduce its carbon emissions by 45% by 2030 and 70% by 2040 and 95% by 2050 compared to the baseline levels of 1990. So the Clean Buildings Performance Standard aims to increase the energy efficiency and to reduce carbon emissions of buildings within the state of Washington. And the standard is administered by the Washington State Department of Commerce. So there are two tiers within the standard. And a tier 1 building is a building where the sum of non-residential hotel, motel, dormitory, and floor areas exceed 50,000 square feet. So this is a really nice graphic and overview where you can see the differences between the two tiers. The industrial, agriculture, and manufacturing buildings are eligible for exemption and within the tier 1 buildings. And back in March 2022, the Clean Buildings Expansion Bill was signed into law, which added then the second tier of buildings, which applies now to buildings 20,000 square feet or larger. And The first phase of this expansion will require reporting on benchmarking, implementation of energy management plans, and operations and maintenance programs for all Tier 2 buildings. So in this training, though, because the Tier 2 buildings are, the rulemaking has not been completed. So in this training for now, we will focus on the Tier 1 buildings. They all have to comply with the Clean Buildings Performance Standard. There's mandatory compliance, starts in the year 2026, and we'll go further into this timeline. And it does not include multifamily residential buildings. So let's briefly go over some terminology, as these words will often be used when we talk about the Clean Buildings Performance Standard. ASHRAE is the American Society of Heating, Refrigeration, and Air Conditioning Engineers. We have the Energy Star portfolio that is used. It is an online platform and program which is used for the energy accounting. The energy managers can upload the utility data into this program, and or the utilities are being allowed to automatically upload the utility data. And it's basically used for the energy accounting part. The energy portfolio manager also automatically calculates an EOI, and energy use intensity. That is, it's expressed as an energy per square foot per year for 12 consecutive months. And it's calculated by dividing the total energy consumed by the building in 1 year by the total gross floor area of the building. And then we have the EOI target. It's an energy use intensity target, which is listed for each building type in table 7.2 in the normative Annex Z of the standard. Then often used and compared to is the weather normalized energy use intensity, which is energy which your properties would have used if you would have experienced a 30-year average temperature. So it normalizes and your energy usage and gets rid of any sort of outliers due to maybe severe weather conditions. And then we have the EEM abbreviation, which is the energy efficiency measures. So the Clean Buildings Performance Standards holds different components which the building owners have to implement. We are not going too much in depth of each individual component. They can be some they're going to be like a topic on its own, and we don't have enough time to cover every single one in depth, but you should know about them. So we have the energy management plan and the operation and maintenance plan, which program which have to be implemented. Then there is the benchmarking piece and calculating the weather normalized energy use intensity of a building. Then there are possible energy audits which need to happen depending on the case. Then there's the reporting piece, and ultimately, hopefully, meeting compliance. So the Tier 1 has 3 deadlines which are approaching fast, by which the buildings have to comply. So buildings greater than the 220,000 square feet need to comply by June 1st, 2026. Buildings between 90,000 square feet and less than 22,000 to 220 and 1,000 square feet need to comply by June 1st, 2027. And then anything smaller than 9,000 square feet, but larger than 50,000 square feet needs to comply June 1st, 2028. So let's take a look at the example timeline for one of the largest building category and the earliest compliance date. This is an important graphic because it shows and stresses the point that building owners really need to start now. So if a building owner has not done any energy analysis so far, they need to really start looking at where their building is at. It will take quite some time, you know, if they do an energy audit and their EOI happens to be above the target, it will take some time to do an energy audit, you know, maybe recruit somebody who does the energy audit, then to budget and plan for the energy efficiency measures. Then you have to measurement and verify that the energy efficiency measures were successful, and you have to see where your EOI, if it's actually meeting the target after the implementation of the energy efficiency measures or not. And then you have the compliance date. So the 220,000 square feet buildings need to comply here by June 1st of 2026. So if you look at it, it only gives like 16 to 18 months to be completed for the energy efficiency measures. You need to have, after you completed them, 12 months of data to make sure that you're actually reaching and meeting the EUI target.
Hey, Rebecca, real quick.
Yeah.
We have a question about whether the square foot requirements are for individual buildings only and how that affects like a campus of buildings, like a school.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. We have a special slide. We'll talk about the school, the K-12, a little bit later on in this webinar. There are some extra guidance for K-12 schools. So just please be patient and hang in there with me. So here's a quick overview of the different roles the Clean Buildings Performance Standard defines and talks about. So the building owner ultimately has the responsibility to bring the building into compliance. And some of these roles can overlap. They're not necessarily isolated, but they do come with different responsibilities. So you have the building manager who's responsible for maintaining the building and its envelope. And the building manager also is the person responsible for possibly responsible for expending the funds on capital improvements of the building. Then you have the building operator, the person who inspects, operates, and maintains the building systems and components that fall within the scope of the standard. You have the energy manager, that is the individual who has the responsibility to do the energy, analyze the energy use and make sure the building is using minimal energy while still ensuring indoor environmentally quality. And then you have the qualified person, and the qualified person has an important role within the standard. It is a person who needs to have certain credentials and training and expertise. And it can be a licensed professional architect or engineer. It can be a building operator with a building operator certification of level 2, which we offer. It can be a certified commissioning professional, a qualified energy auditor, a certified energy manager, an energy management professional certified by the Energy Management Association. But more important, the responsibilities of the qualified person, because that person is responsible for determining whether or not the building is seeking compliance, has an energy use intensity target. They need to establish this energy use intensity target, submit the forms, and actually sign off of the report you sent over to Commerce. They need to review possible commissioning reports, and they need to certify that the energy efficiency measures are functional and operating as intended. Then there is the role of a qualified energy auditor. And that is a person who is audited, who has special training. It can be an energy auditor, assessor, analyst certified by ASHRAE, or the Association of Energy Engineers. So, a quick question. This is a word cloud. We would like to ask our participants, what do you see your role to be? Is it going to be the energy auditor? Is it, and you can write anything. You don't have to just write out the roles which are written out in the standard. It can be a consultant, it can be a contractor, it can be an advisor. There we go. Interesting. Okay. I love seeing the cloud move and the words being weighted by your answers. Great. So a lot of consultants, some contractors, advisors, building managers. This is a great mixed group. Interesting. Well, in order for building owners to get into compliance on time, and it will take all hands on deck. So this is good to see. Thank you. So now let's dive into the different paths of compliance. This is an overview of all different types of compliance paths, and I have this slide included multiple times throughout the sessions. So you can, there's the exemption. You can apply for an exemption depending on your situation. You can try to go down the path of meeting the EOI. If you don't have an EOI or you can't meet it, there's the investment path, criteria path. And then we will also talk about the conditional compliance and when to apply for that. So in order to decide which path a building owner should take, they need to start benchmarking the building and to see if they can find an EOI or if a EOI can be determined. So, and this gives like a little, it's a process diagram, what you should do first, and can you determine an EOI? If yes, do this. If no, then you go down to the investment path, criteria path. So let's go and look on how to comply and the exemption part of the standard. So this, I realize this is a lot of words and typing. I included these. I included these so when we share out the slides, you have a reference or a brief summary of it. So certain buildings can qualify for and can apply for an exemption. So for example, if there's no occupancy for 12 consecutive months within the last 2 years before the compliance date, that would be one scenario that you can apply for then. Or if the building gross floor area, subtracting the unconditioned space or semi-conditioned space, is less than 50,000 square feet. Or if 50% of the gross floor area of the building is primarily used for manufacturing or industrial purposes. And then in agricultural buildings can apply for an exemption, and if your building is pending demolition. And another important one is if your building meets certain conditions of financial hardship. So under those circumstances, you can apply for an exemption. But what about when you want to, or when you go down the EUI target path? So here are the steps which are written out, and these are for when we share the slides. I'm going to concentrate on the diagram, which I think delivers a better visual. So first thing you start out of, you review the standard and your available resources. And no matter what, you have to develop and implement an operation and maintenance program and an energy program, so that you can get started on right away. And then the next thing you do is to start creating an Energy Start Portfolio Manager account. You enter or upload the utility data, and you actually find out where your building is at, and you develop an EUI. And develop an EOIT you can compare it to. So this is a continuation of the previous slide. So if your building's weather normalized EUI is smaller than the outlined or developed energy use intensity target, then you're good and you can submit the forms and you reach compliance. It gets difficult and more of a lengthy progress if your weather normalized EUI does not meet the developed target. And if it's above the target, then you need to conduct an energy audit, implement the identified energy efficiency measures, and then conduct a measurement and verification process, collect the data for 12 months, and then to see whether your new weather normalized EUI is actually meeting the EUI target now. If it's not, then you have to implement more energy efficiency measures, and so on. Conduct an annual reporting until you actually meet the energy efficiency of the EUI target. If you anticipate that you're not going to be able to reach compliance within the deadline, within the due date, then you need to apply for conditional appliance 180 days before the compliance date. But let's hope everybody can reach compliance in time, and then you would submit the documentation through the Clean Buildings portal on the Washington State Department of Commerce website. So when we take a look at the investment criteria path, you can have there are two ways for the investment criteria path. One is if you can establish an EOI, and one is if you cannot establish an EOI. This one is for when you can. So yeah, so you would establish your EOI, create your account with an energy portfolio manager, benchmark your building, and then if you are finding out that you cannot meet that EOI and you want to go down the investment criteria path, then that includes completing a life cycle analysis, which is in accordance with Annex X. And Commerce just recently last week had a webinar on the life cycle cost analysis. They showcased a tool which can be used with that, and their recording is also on the website. So then you would, after your audit and the life cycle, you implement the energy efficiency measures which are cost effective, and then go through the measurement and verification path again. So if you can't establish an EOI for whatever reason, then you don't need to benchmark. But you still need to develop an operations and maintenance program, and you still need to implement an energy management plan, and you need to conduct an ASHRAE level 2 energy audit. So that type of audit is a little bit more expensive, and it just does a deeper level of energy audit. And you would then again complete the life cycle cost analysis in accordance with the standard, implement all cost-effective energy efficiency measures, and yeah, go down the path like the previous one. So you do the commissioning. If all checks out and everything is operating and delivering as intended, you can submit the forms. If it does not, then you need to correct the performance issues, which takes additional time. You need to recommission, and then once it's commissioned successful, you can submit the forms. If you cannot commission successful, then there's a possibility of the penalty. So let's hope everybody can be on target with the deadlines. So let's go down and explain a little bit the conditional compliance. So you, if you want to pursue compliance, you perform an ASHRAE level 2 audit and identifying the measures, implement all cost-effective energy efficiency measures, and you ensure that all energy management and operation and maintenance plans are implemented. And if you anticipate not being able to reach compliance by the deadline, you apply for conditional compliance no later than 180 days prior to the building's compliance date. From there on, you need to submit annual reporting until the compliance is actually met. And then submit a completion report. So here we are going for the K-12 special guidance. It's, I know it is very text heavy, but I didn't really want to leave things out. the special guidance for K-12 is actually extremely helpful for the school community. It enables, so tier 1 buildings, covered buildings, they can report as a singular building or as a building complex, defined in the standard, which is really helpful. I know a lot of schools have portables or multiple buildings. Some of them are connected through breezeways or sometimes conditioned or semi-conditioned hallways. You know, in the portables, sometimes they're sub-metered, sometimes there are not. But being able to report as a K-12 school campus will help with the submetering portion of with the submetering portion of this standard. So, and then also some of the times schools have mixed spaces. Some schools have a cafeteria or a building which supplies like a larger kitchen, a commercial kitchen, which supplies food for multiple buildings, which are not incorporated in the standards definition of the school. Or and this guidance, the special guidance for the schools, enable the schools to actually have a weighted list and a weighted EOI target for their particular site.
Rebecca, you might be able to see some of the questions that are coming in. One was specifically about that the campus or multi-building question as it relates to higher education, like community colleges and universities with different lots of different buildings on one campus.
Yes, so higher ed is not in the guidance for this special guidance for the K-12. So K-12 schools with pre-kindergarten must have at least 75% of the students in grade kindergarten through 12, and it's specifically K-12. So this does not include college or university classroom facilities, labs, vocational, technical, trade, or continuing education schools. So yeah, I'm sorry, higher ed is not included to my knowledge. So, but let's see. There was another question. Can these roles be completed by the same person? Yes. It is my understanding that different roles within the standard can be completed and withheld with the same person. And that's what I was trying to say with earlier, that these roles can overlap. But we will keep track and record these questions and make sure and verify that we're giving the right answers. What is the definition of cost-effective energy efficiency measures? Yeah, so if it's within the ASHRAE level 2 audit, there is this cost life cycle analysis tool. Commerce is also referencing on their website, which can be used. So I can add a little bit information and share it out after the training. And let's see, if you do not have an EOI, then what is the metric for meeting the standard? So if you don't have an EOI, it is my understanding you would go down the investment criteria path. Yeah, so then that would, I can go back a couple slides. This is for when you cannot establish an EOI. Yeah, then you would go down the investment criteria path, which means you still have to develop an operations and maintenance programs. You still have to implement an energy management plan, but you also need to conduct an ASHRAE level 2 energy audit, which can be it takes some funds and also takes some time, because you need to recruit somebody who can do it, and they need to examine your building and identify the energy efficiency measures. And then this is where it also talks about the completing the life cycle cost analysis tool. So the cost-effective energy measurements, energy efficiency measurements can be determined through that tool. Let's see, there's one more question. So to clarify, if a K-12 site campus only has a single service meter and no submetering or individual buildings, including portable, it needs to be reported as a singular building. Yes, I believe so. If you only have 1 meter, so what you can do, you can, so the special K-12 guidance allows you to add the portable square footage, as long as the portable is occupied, into the gross floor footage of the site of the K-12 campus. And then you can use 1 meter and do not have to submeter. I hope that answers that question. So, but Commerce also did a webinar for the K-12 community, specifically going through different scenarios. So I can maybe look up that webinar and that training and see if it's recorded, and see if we can share this out. So we're a little bit ahead of our time. This is the first time we're presenting a training for this audience, so I didn't know how long it would take. So I have a break scheduled. I had anticipated it to be from about 11:50 to noon. I would still like to take maybe let's take a 10-minute break for everybody to take a breath and maybe go grab a glass of water or some coffee, and then I'll be back here and we will continue at 11:55. And if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to keep posting questions. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I have two more questions here. One is asking how the standard looks at a campus that has a central utility plans or that have central utility plans. So if it's not a K through 12 school, I would think that that would be a case for an investment criteria path, but I will definitely check in with Commerce to confirm my answer, and we'll email that out after the webinar. But that would be, to me, that looks like a investment criteria path, depending on the building situation. And then other templates available for reporting requirements and who has them. It is my understanding that there may be some templates for some of the components, but in general, I don't think it's the goals to have checklists created. There are some tools available, and like the life cycle cost analysis tool, but there are no templates, if I understand the question right, which simply provide check boxes, because it is my understanding that the intent is that everybody should implement a good O&M program and energy efficiency measures and really strive towards a culture of an energy efficient operations and trying to lower the carbon emissions. So, but I will also make sure that my statement is correct to verify with Commerce that I did not misspeak. So, okay, let's move on to the second half of the webinar. So how can you help your customers, we all have customers, to prepare to reach the compliance? And one and the most important items is to be competent and know about the subject matter, so you can engage in a conversation with them. And this webinar and exposing yourself to the subject matter and learning about it as a first great step. And I feel like I'm always learning something new about the standard as well. So it's a continuous learning process, but we will all get there and for the higher, better cause. So, and know about the available resources. Your customers will be grateful. They might not even have the time to investigate all the resources out there, and there are a lot of them out there. So knowing where to find or where to refer them to, for them to find the resources which can best support them. There's great programs out, and we'll go into the resources a little bit later. And then spread the word. It is a great, the timeline is a great shared concern. There's a big worry out there that a lot of building owners are kicking the can down the hall, that they're not starting early enough. And on this, you can't start early enough. If you start benchmarking and you find out that your building is meeting the requirements, good. What better peace of mind is there? That is awesome. If you're unsure and you don't know where your building is at, and you start now, you buy yourself, well, it's not extra time. You allow yourself enough time to come into compliance by the deadline. Yeah, you don't want to stress about it. So starting now is the way to go. So you can advise your customers on that. Sell them products and services which will set them up for success and compliance. A lot of times when a building equipment fails or something needs to be replaced, a lot of times the immediate answer is to exchange something like for like, because it's easy, because it's the infrastructure of the equipment which is in place. And it seems to be a lot of times the most economical way to go in this particular situation. But if you're thinking about a little bit further ahead, with a standard in mind and possibly additional requirements coming down the road, you really want to make sure that you advise them in a way where they buy and implement products which are energy efficient and are reducing carbon emissions. Because if they happen to not meet compliance, the EOI target, and then incur a penalty, that would be greatly costly and probably more cost prohibitive than compared to an energy efficiency upgrade. So implement the identified energy efficiency measures and pay closely attention to commissioning and retro commissioning system. So we have a couple of great examples when it comes to that here a little bit in a little while. Know about the research of the early adopter incentives program. One of the great, and I believe underutilized resources, is the early adopter incentive programs from Commerce. If eligible, building owners may receive a one-time base incentive payment of 85 cents per gross square foot of gross floor area, and that excludes parking lots and unconditioned or semi-conditioned spaces. And the building must be a tier 1 building. That's what we're focusing on this webinar. And the building must be served by one electric utility or gas company or a thermal energy company providing or delivering energy services. And this incentive is, it can be administered in addition to a utility incentive. So it's not one or the other. But the utility, they do need to pay public utility taxes in order for them to qualify. And one requirement is that the actual EOI of the building is 15 points above the target. So, and then the building must be brought into full compliance with the energy standard, with the CBPS standard. So let's see, do I have? Okay. I think there are still funds available under this program, I'm pretty sure. But the incentive funds overall are limited to 75 million. So the sooner the building owner can apply, the greater the chances are of receiving a piece of that. So and then help the building owner identify energy efficiency opportunities. So that can be within the building envelope, roofing, windows, lighting and lighting sensors, HVAC equipment, appliances, sensors, and building controls. Sensors are oftentimes the cause for a building not to operate as intended. So is building controls when they're being overwritten. Yeah, so pay attention to all those opportunities, identify them, and get them taken care of. So the Smart Building Center offers a tool lending library, and it offers a broad variety of tools which can be helpful to identify energy efficiency opportunities. And these tools can be checked out for free in the state of Washington and Oregon. So in different tools, I just added a couple examples here for different tools, which can be used for the building envelope. For example, you can use an infrared camera to identify where there's heat loss or where there's an opportunity for added insulation, or making the envelope a little bit more tighter. We also have a tool which measures glass thickness, and it has a low E detector. For analyzing the HVAC, there are different tools, of course, the flow hoods, the digital manometer, differential pressures, ultra leak detectors, portable combustion analyzers, pencil draft detectors, and those are just examples you can check out. For some of these tools, if you would like to borrow them, we also have some videos on how to use these tools, which can be really helpful. For the lighting part, we have the light meter, and then the electronic and magnetic ballast checker. And for power, you can also use infrared camera to analyze and investigate any power issues you may have. There are solar transmission and power meters, 3-phase logging meters. We have a lot of data loggers you can use and apply into the field, which can monitor the operations. And let's see. Yeah, so we have over 85 tool types. We just acquired some new tools for the indoor air quality testing. There are IR cameras, flow meters, data loggers. One of our newest tools is a acoustic imager, which it's brand new. And it can be helpful to investigate air leaks in compressed air systems, which can be quite pricey. So you're more than welcome to check out these tools. Did I advance too fast? Yeah. So to check out the tools, the entire library, go to www.smartbuildingcenter.org/tool-library. Or you can scan this QR code for easy access. So some examples of energy efficiency projects are, for example, exchanging a chiller with a VRF system. I have an example to show to highlight here in a little bit about that. Installing occupancy and vacancy sensors, daylight sensors, or a new lighting control system. Installing solar, replacing inefficient boilers. Installing smart thermostats and or new windows. So, oops, excuse me. I have a delay in advancing and going back on my slides here. Just a second. Here we go. So this is an energy efficiency project of exchanging a chiller with a VRF system. This building is a 2-story office building and had a little more than 22,000 square feet. And on this picture, you see the floor plan of the first floor, and the red box, that's where the data center is located in that particular building. And it was being cooled with a crack unit, a computer room air conditioning unit. We there was already a variable refrigerant flow installed in conditioning part of the space, which is to the top left in yellow. And then the rest of the space was conditioned through heat pumps. And the second floor of the building was completely conditioned through heat pumps. So it was a small area that the crack unit was cooling. So the conditions and why we did this upgrade was, or this project was, the crack unit was needed repair. It had repeated leaks, and the life expectancy was 2 to 5 years. If it was repaired again, there were no controls on the crack unit. And for some of the for the existing and some of the existing miscellaneous equipment, there was no building automation on the crack unit, and the existing VRF system was not integrated into the building's automation controls either. Very patient. There we go. It's because of the pictures. So yeah, there you can see where it was a Liebherr 10-ton unit servicing the data center, and outside it also had the strike cooler. And it was replaced with a 12-ton VRF condenser. And ultimately, these two VRF units were in sequence, and ultimately what happened then was afterwards is that the units would take the heat which was produced in the data center, and it would heat the office space, which ended up being really, really, really energy efficient. This is the measured demand of the KW before and after the project. The project was done in 2018. So the building occurred demand charges before the project, which is 2017, you can see in the blue line. And then after the project, you can see a significant drop in demand, which eliminated the demand charges. There was a little bit of a peak during the summer months of 2018, and there needed to be some adjustments made for on how the controls and how it was operated. And in 2019, I think that is the most representative graph of the four. Here you can see that it's constantly staying under the demand. 2020, you can see the break. We were in the pandemic. It was a school building, so everything reopened in August, September, and you can see it was just following the average path there. Another example I wanted to show is a lighting controls upgrade. A lighting controls upgrade gives the building operator immense capabilities of operating and steering the energy consumption of a building. In this particular case, you can see different capabilities of what the lighting control system can deliver. It gives you alerts right away, so you can be spot on and eliminate issues right away. You can schedule, you can have energy reporting. You see how much energy is being used and how much is being saved. You can daylight and you can dim, you can shed light for a certain percentage. And the next slide, I added in because I wanted to show how much occupancy sensors can contribute towards energy savings. So this is showing a lighting savings by strategy, and how much of the savings in a percentage are contributed to the different strategies. So I'm just taking a peek at the questions real quick. Is there a place online to know how much early adopter dollars remain? That's a good question. I will have to ask that myself if that is posted somewhere open source. What should we tell owners about the transition from energy to carbon, similar to the Seattle Building Performance Standards? Well, that's a good question. So we know it's coming for Seattle. And usually what happens in Seattle, we've seen happen in the state just a little bit later on. I would, plan for it. I mean, it's not in any rule for the state yet, but I would put it out on their radar. Just that there's a great possibility that this may be coming down the pipeline, so they can plan and budget for it, and install equipment accordingly. Why wouldn't the correction of deficiency of a BMS system not qualify as an energy efficiency matter? Well, that's a good question. Why wouldn't the correction of a deficiency? Well, sometimes, and we get into this retro commissioning and recommissioning of the systems, depending on where the system is at, it and if it brings the building into a in a state of compliance where it meets the EOI target, then I would say that that is a good approach and a good possibility. Why it wouldn't qualify as an energy efficiency measure, I will have to ask again too if there's a specific answer or a specific reason for that. Where is the chiller in your example? The chiller was on the first floor in the middle of a building. It was, enclosed. It was really almost in the center of the building of the first floor, if that answers the question. I can go back and show it on the slide. So the chiller was in this room right here, and this was where the data center is, and the chiller was here. So the next example is actually highlighting a retro commissioning project. This is an existing building, a higher education building. It's a community college in King County. And the project was initiated by the site staff who were interested in energy efficiency. They had been tracking their utility bills and comparing their energy consumption with average monthly outdoor temperatures. So the building had 187,000 square feet. It was built in 1957. It was where it is delivered with gas and electric by PSE, and it occurred a change in usage in 1996. I think it was, yeah, that's when it changed to be a higher ed facility. And they had no record of the facility ever being commissioned, and the documentation which was available was scattered, especially when it came to the operations and maintenance documentation, making it hard for them to really have a big picture and complete view of the building. So there was this Allerton system in place. It was added in 2009, I believe, but it was never commissioned. There were some guidelines to this project. The owner had to implement all the measures, which had a simple payback smaller than 2 years, and they had to provide 20 hours of operation and maintenance staff training. So measures were done like adding exhaust fan timers, scheduling, which we all know makes a huge part in energy efficiency, boiler maintenance, piping installation, concrete floor installation were identified. And all these measures, after they were implemented, claimed 42,000 kilowatt hours in savings and 7,000 therms in savings when compared to the baseline. They received $30,000 in incentives, which covered 75% of the commissioning agent's costs, which is a huge portion. So, and then they conducted the 20 hours of O&M staff training, which I'm sure was very beneficial in operating the building as intended and efficiently. So now we have another activity. If you go back to your Slido, we would like to know from you what would be included in your ideal building diagnostic toolkit to assist with compliance. And you can just brainstorm, dream. You can write out a big wish list. Just gonna spend a couple minutes here. Right. Thermal sensor drone. Nice. Yes, so the light meters, the thermal imagers, you can all check out for free. And we can put together a basic testing tool combo. Yes. I'm liking what I'm seeing because a lot of these items, if a building owner or an installer or a contractor is not able to buy these or have these tools on hand, you're more than welcome to check these out for free. And usually the way the tool lending library works, we ship out the tools to your address for free. You use them. The only cost you incur is mailing them back to us. And if you're in the area, you can drop them off in person too, and then you don't even have to pay for the shipping. Engaged owners, yes. We all would like engaged building owners. Well, this is good feedback, good input. And I like seeing everybody participating. That's nice. Sometimes these webinars, we had so many people registering. We were really trying to get creative in how we could have an engaging session. But we had 240, I believe, registrants. And well, this is what we came up with. And I'm happy to see that you guys are all chiming in. I know having personal conversations is nice, but the amount of people, it was just prohibitive for this settings. Okay, we have one more question. Yes, we do offer CEUs for this webinar. Britton, you might want to chime in on this one.
Yes, if anyone needs documentation of their participation for maintenance points for your BOC credential, you can email me directly. I'll put my email in the chat. And we're also an accredited IASET provider, so I can provide documentation for those CEUs that will apply to other industry certifications and certificates.
Thank you, Britton. So let's look at some resources. So the first link on this resource page is a link. It goes to a document from Commerce listing a great compilation of all sorts of incentive programs. And you'll be able to click the link once we send out the slides. And we can also attach a PDF maybe in the material we'll send out. So, but the utilities are offering great programs and resources as well for the building owners. They have clean building support websites, which are all listed here. Some are offering accelerator programs. The accelerator programs are mostly intended for building owners. So, but they can be, if you could refer the building owners you engage with to those, that would be very helpful. Then the cities are also offering different programs there, which are available. There's the city of Bellevue mentioned here, and then the city of Seattle is also offering a clean building accelerator program. And then I've listed other good resources here outside of the city programs. Better Bricks has a lot of educational videos and resources of, well, they're also showing a lot of energy efficiency project cases. Berkeley Labs, of course. Then we have our building certification program, which if you go through level 2 of the building operator certification program, you are that qualifies you to take on the role as a qualified person and actually submit the paperwork with Commerce. Then we have the tool lending library, and of course then there is the site for the Washington State Department of Commerce. They have a lot of resources on their site. And we also offer the Clean Buildings Performance Standard Technical Assistance Help Desk at the Clean Building Center, at the Smart Building Center, where we can help you find resources and guide you to the to the right resources. Sometimes it's hard to find something quickly with this big of an offering and resources and help. So as contractors, installers, vendors, you have different options on how much you really would like to engage with your customers. And in one of the PSE trainings PSE provided, they charted this out a little bit, and I thought this was a great way of communicating your level of engagement. So you have a choice. You can go all in and you can own it all. You feel comfortable, you have the capacity to do this, then you know your law, you're comfortable with it, and you can educate and manage your customers' compliance. Then that is one way of doing it. And then you can also do maybe a hybrid where you educate and advise your customers, have a conversation, but you may not be fully knowledgeable, and in certain aspects you refer them to other resources, which is also great help, big help, and greatly appreciated. And then there is the level of least of engagement, where you may not have the capacity, and that's fine too, where you just kind of refer them to somewhere else, to other resources, and say, yeah, I know this is coming, but you might want to check out Commerce website, or check out your utilities or your city's website, and they offer great programs. All of your levels are greatly appreciated, and I think joining this webinar is a great step. So we didn't need as much time as I thought, which is okay. It allows us a little bit more time for questions. When we send out the reminder for the webinar, we ask for you to submit some questions. We did not receive many, but a couple, and I will touch on those. So one question was, and this is a very understandable question, I'm confused about what square footage are required to meet different performance. And I added different performance standards and when. And I didn't have too much detail or background why this question was the way, why it was asked the way it was. But so I made the assumption that there was different performance standards, which caused the confusion. And it's just, there are different programs out there. So we were talking today about the Washington State Clean Buildings Performance Standard, which applies to the state of Washington. And I outlined the square footages and the deadlines within that standard. But do know that there are other programs out there. For example, the Seattle Tune-Up program, which has their second cycle tune-up, and they have compliance dates and square footages also listed on their website. So just be cognizant of what you're looking at and what standards are out there, and know that there are different ones. So you can go onto the Seattle Tune-Up program website and check out those. And but today's webinar was about this Washington State Clean Buildings Performance Standard. One question was, why aren't industrial or manufacturing buildings included? And the why is a difficult question to answer. I know that, or we know that legislation was clear that that the manufacturing buildings and industrial buildings may be eligible, that they're eligible for exemptions, but for the reason why, I'm not 100% sure, because I was not in the rulemaking session. I can guess, and I could assume that it may be because the EUI targets are not generally established for the manufacturing and the industrial or agricultural buildings, and because the EUIs of these occupancy vary widely. So yeah, so that is speculation of why. I'm not 100% sure. So let's see. Okay. So do you have, besides that, are there any other questions? Who will be enforcing? How will enforcement be conducted? So the Department of Commerce has been determined to be the administrating piece part of this standard. So I will, so I'm assuming they will be the ones who are enforcing it. How will they enforce it? I'm not sure, but I will be sure to ask Commerce and maybe follow up on that. And I think they may be still thinking about how they are going to do that. Yeah. Are there any other questions? No? Okay. So then I would like to thank everybody. We did not take the full complete hours. I would like to thank you for joining this webinar and making the first step on trying to get informed. We will send out a follow-up survey. We would like to hear from you what other webinars you may find beneficial and educational and which would help you. I also would like to thank our sponsors, our supporting utilities, Avista, Seattle City Light, Clark Public Utilities, Puget Sound Energy, Tacoma Power, and Snohomish County PUD. And I have, and you are very welcome. I was happy to be on this webinar, and I hope to see you at another one coming soon. Thank you.